Welcome back to Hard Copy. The conversation is about the Edo governorship election, which many saw as a litmus test for the electoral umpire. And as far as election credibility is concerned, maybe or maybe not, they passed, and that's according to the CSOs. My next guest is a National Commissioner and Director of Voter Education of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Festus Okoye. Mr. Festus Okoye, thank you so much for coming on Hard Copy.
Thank you so much.
And I could sense the joy on your face coming from this election. I'm guessing that you feel that the that INEC conducted a very credible election, and it's been described by many as a credible process. So I think it's safe to ask you, what did INEC do right this time?
Well, when we are preparing for any election, the way we prepare for a big election is the way we prepare for a state assembly constituency election, because each election has its own peculiarities. But with the Edo governorship election, we prepared for this election under a pandemic. So the shadow of the pandemic was looming. And also there was also the threat of violence and the use of incendiary language by the main political actors. So this heightened tension, heightened fear, and then there was also apprehension. So what we did was to prepare and prepare well, and also prepare strategically. And we deployed the non-sensitive materials on time, and also deployed the sensitive materials on time. But one thing that was going for us was that we were very inclusive and consultative. We carried all the main critical stakeholders in the political process along in all our preparations. So they were never in doubt whatsoever in relation to what we were doing.
But then the All Progressives Congress has rejected the result and has chosen, we don't know the outcome of that, but they've rejected the results. So what does that tell you of the process? And many say it's credible, but the main opposition party says it is not credible. How does that make you feel as the electoral umpire?
The issue is that both the electoral management body and the political parties are products of the Constitution and the law. And the Nigerian Constitution has given the Commission the power to organize, undertake, and supervise elections. But it has also given a different agency of government the power of judicial review. So if any individual or any group or any political party is not happy with the outcome of a process, the law and the Constitution has provided for other means and other mechanisms of seeking redress. So it is within the constitutional right of the candidates in the election, and also the constitutional right of the political party to test what we have done before the judicial process.
I think you agree with me when I say that every election presents an opportunity to learn, and there have been some observations, particularly from the election observers. The Center for Democracy and Development has raised some questions and says that INEC should not rejoice yet, because a largely peaceful election probably, created a cover for some of the lapses observed on the part of INEC. For example, there was late arrival of INEC officials to some of the polling units. What was responsible for that?
There are some issues involved in relation to this matter. One, the issue of deployment. I think that overall, we deployed on time and we deployed well. Our own information is that 93.73% of the polling units in Edo State opened on or before 10 a.m. in the morning. And our also information is that even the places where we did not deploy on time, that all the eligible voters had the right and the opportunity to exercise their democratic franchise. And in the few polling units and registration areas where we had challenges, and we know where the challenges arose from. In one of them, some of the core members were protesting that their training allowances had not been paid, and they were about to be deployed. So they now said, no, if we deploy, we are not too sure that we will still get our pay. So they refused to deploy. And by the time this matter was sorted out, it was almost 9 a.m. And if you don't deploy by that time, there's already agitation at the polling units. And that's exactly what happened. And secondly, sometimes we refuse to deploy unless we have the full complement of security personnel that will accompany the materials and the personnel to the polling units. And sometimes we also have challenges with transport.
Is that what happened with this election?
In this election, we had very minimal challenges with the issue of deployment. And the major one we had was this deployment in relation to this particular registration area on account of the issue of payment.
The issue of logistics management has really been questioned because to an extent, the CDD and other election observers say that was responsible for the breach in COVID-19 protocol because the people were agitated, as you rightly pointed out. And by the time the materials arrived, they were already in their numbers. So getting them to observe those protocols would mean that elections would have to be extended. Election time would have to be extended. So you understand where INEC comes in now in terms of the COVID-19 protocols. How would you say that INEC performed in terms of observing the COVID-19 protocols?
No. On this particular issue, I completely disagree. In most of the polling units, the ad hoc staff were there by 7 a.m. in the morning. And they had already set up before even the voters arrived. If we are talking about over 2,600 polling units and over 3,000 voting points. So we deployed in over 5,000 polling units and voting points.
Would you say that INEC was on top of the situation as far as observing the COVID-19 protocols is concerned? The reason I say that is that we had observers on the ground as well.
Yes.
We saw the videos as well.
Yes.
And to a large extent, the issue of physical distancing was largely disregarded.
In Edo State, people were really not ready to observe the COVID protocols. In the markets, on the streets, you see people refusing to wear face masks. So some of these things were carried to the polling units. And when they are about to vote, they put on their face mask. The moment they cast their votes, they remove the face mask. And some of them just plainly refuse to observe the COVID protocols. So I think that it is an issue of enlightenment. We must do more voter mobilization. We must keep on persuading people that it is in the interest of everybody to observe all these protocols and guidelines.
Another issue with the elections as far as observations go, especially on the part of the governor of Edo State, was the malfunctioning of card readers. I think it's also worrying. I'm sure you agree. You're already smiling about it. What exactly went wrong with the card readers this time?
Nothing.
No, it's largely reported that card readers malfunctioned in a number of polling units.
You know, that's what when we are discussing about deployment, about technology, we must look at it holistically. In the few places, in the few polling units where the...
You have a number?
Of the few polling units.
Yes.
For our own information and from our own platform indicated that in at least 90% of all the polling units they didn't have any challenge with the smart card readers. In the few places where we had challenges with the smart card readers, we had what we call a registration area technical assistance in 192 polling units, registration areas. And all these registration area technical assistants had redundancies. They had spare smart card readers. So the moment there's a challenge with any smart card reader and they are called, they go to the place, either fix the smart card reader, and if it cannot be fixed, they replace it. But the problem was that some of the ad hoc staff who served as presiding officers or assistant presiding officers, rather than call their supervisors or rather than call the registration area technical assistants when they had problem with smart card reader, they were calling their NYSC coordinators. And that created some challenge in timing and fixing of the smart card readers.
That could also be orientation issues. I don't know how you will respond to that, but I think it depends on you. It's on you. But before we go, as we started this conversation, I told you that there are lessons to be learned.
Yes.
Going into the Ondo election, which is just less than 2 weeks away, what are the lessons that you have picked from the Edo State elections that will be, or mistakes or observations that you have seen from the Edo State election that will be corrected going into Ondo State election?
Well, we believe that our training of our ad hoc staff must be more robust, and that all the issues, challenges we faced in terms of communication must be bridged. Secondly, we also believe that we need to hold more conversation with the National Union of Road Transport Workers and the transport owners so that we can get some of the vehicles we hire to sleep at the registration area centers a day before the elections, so that we don't have problems of transporting some of our ad hoc staff to the polling units. And then we need to also recalibrate the polling units a day before the election, so that people will come in and fall into our protocols as they come into the polling units.
And also to pay the ad hoc staff so that you don't have a protest.
We are not going to have challenge with that. We have already discussed it and we are going to deal with it. We are not going to have that challenge.
Thank you so much for coming to speak with us on Hard Copy.
Very well.
Well, that's Hard Copy. Thank you so much for finding time to tune in. Send feedback to the email address and social media handle on your screen. Remember to catch this and past episodes on our website, channelstv.com, and our podcast on channelstv.com/podcasts. I am Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.